look at this picture, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So, Suki, today you will start reading?
Okay, I will read.
Yeah. If we look at this picture.
Yes. If we look at this picture of the self-existence and its works as a unitary unlimited whole of vision, it stands together and imposes itself by its convincing totality. But to the analysis of the logical intellect, it offers an abundance of difficulties, such as all attempts to erect a logical system out of a perception of an illimitable existence must necessarily create. For any such endeavor must either effect consistency by an arbitrary sectioning of the complex truth of things, or else by its comprehensiveness become logically untenable. For we see that the indeterminable determines itself as infinite and finite, the immutable admits a constant mutability and endless differences. The one becomes an innumerable multitude, the impersonal creates or supports personality, is itself a person. The self has a nature and is yet other than its nature. Being turns into becoming, and yet it is always itself and other than its becomings. The universal individualizes itself, and the individual universalizes himself. Brahman is at once void of qualities and capable of infinite qualities, the Lord and doer of works, yet a non-doer and a silent witness of the working of nature. If we look carefully at these working of nature, once we put aside the veil of familiarity and our unthinking acquiescence in the process of things as natural, because so they always happen, we discover that all she does in whole or in parts is a miracle, an act of some incomprehensible magic. The being of the self-existence and the world that has appeared in it are, each of them, and both together, a supranational mystery. There seems to us to be a reason in things because the processes of the physical finite are consistent to our view, and their law determinable, but this reason in things, when closely examined, seems to stumble at every moment against the irrational or infrarational and the suprarational. The consistency, the determinability of process seems to lessen rather than increase as we pass from matter to life and from life to mentality. If the finite consents to some extent to look as if it were rational, the infinitesimal refuses to be bound by the same laws, and the infinite is unseizable. As for the action of the universe and its significance, it escapes us altogether. If self, God, or spirit there be, his dealings with the world and us are incomprehensible, offer no clue that we can follow. God and nature and even ourselves move in a mysterious way, which is only partially and at points intelligible, but as a whole escapes our comprehension. All the works of Maya look like the production of a suprarational magical power, which arranges things according to its wisdom or its fantasy, but the wisdom which is not ours, a fantasy which baffles our imagination. The spirit that manifests things or manifests itself in them so obscurely looks to our reason like a magician, and his power or Maya, a creative magic. But magic can create illusion or it can create astounding realities, and we find it difficult to decide which of these suprarational processes faces us in this universe.
Yeah. They're very, very tight, and we'll have to look at it very carefully because he's saying a lot of things. So, as usual, I will first read out to you the summary of what he's saying so we get the general idea Then we go into the details. Okay? Basically, what he's saying in this para is that to understand the whole is very difficult because our mind is analytical. We see from the mental consciousness, but there is a infra consciousness, there is a supra consciousness, and there is also the supreme consciousness. So when we try to judge everything from our mental consciousness, it is incomprehensible. And the incomprehensibility is very clear. You can see so many things. Okay. When you look carefully, science does not look carefully, it just notes the results. I mix hydrogen and oxygen and I get water. If you start looking at it carefully, you say, how the hell is that possible? You say, oxygen is a gas, hydrogen is a gas, but I mix them and I get water. I should get another gas. So it's a very peculiar sort of thing. And the seed is one and it starts becoming infinitely. It becomes all leaves and fruits and flowers. How does that happen? So everything is a mystery. That's basically what he's saying. So I'll read out the summary now to you. This comprehensive view is convincing to the spiritual, integral, total outlook, but not to our limited mind. When we start looking with a limited mind, everything seems to be a contradiction and a mystery. Okay. There are constant opposites and contraries that are logically untenable. How can the one and the many be the same? It can't be. How can darkness and light be the same? Impossible at a mental level. That's what he's saying. Then he's giving examples. The infinite becomes finite. The immutable constantly mutates itself into infinite forms. The one reality becomes the multiplicities of the cosmos. The impersonal becomes the personal. The universal becomes the individual. The individual universalizes himself. Being slips into becoming. The Saguna and the Nirguna are both Brahman. The witness, non-doer, becomes the executor of all works. So everything seems to be a mystery. When you go into the spiritual levels of consciousness, you see that, okay, there is these what we call opposites are really complementary aspects, but more than that, we don't understand anything. How is that possible? Okay, so thus everything is a miracle, an incomprehensible mystery to our limited mind. There seems to be a law and causality, but when seen closely, the mystery becomes even greater. Okay? What is applicable at one level is not applicable at another level. All is a supra-rational mystery, the works of a magician who creates illusions as well as realities. So which is the truth? You don't know. And Sri Aurobindo says that even up to the overmind level, it remains a mystery. Okay? You understand many more things, but even at the overmind level, spirit and matter, you may see both, but they are unconnected. Okay? You see Chit Shakti, consciousness and force, but they are unconnected. They become connected and meaningful only at the supramental level. And mind you, the supramental level, you can have glimpses of it even at the lower levels of consciousness. Okay? You don't need to be stationed permanently in the supermind. If you do that, then you have got fantastic powers. But even if you don't do that, you can get glimpses of the supermind in the lower planes of consciousness. So this is what he's saying. Okay? Now he has brought in the idea of magic also, because this is in the Advaita philosophy, which follows very closely Shankara. Okay? Shankara uses the image of the magician. Okay? He says that when you go to the self, you make your mind silent, you see the physical world is unreal. But when you see the Lord, okay, the Ishvara, then you know that he is a magician. At the lower levels, he is creating illusions out of that which you thought is reality. But if you look carefully, you will see that it is just a trick that he is playing on you. Okay, that which is real, he is making you see it as unreal. He's like a magician on the stage, an illusionist. Okay, there is no reality to it. The world is not unreal. That's what Shankara says. When you realize the impersonal, the physical world is unreal to you. When you realize the personal aspect of the divine, he's a magician. He's playing tricks on you. Okay, so that's what Shyam also using the word magician here. So this is what he's saying in the para. Now we go back to the beginning, because there, when you go into details, it becomes very interesting. Okay, so and again, to understand what he's saying, I'll read out very quickly the previous para what he has said. Okay, then we'll get the continuity. In the previous para, he has said, the first truth of spiritual experience is the absolute reality of Sat, self-existence, Chit, self-awareness, self-delight, Ananda, which is extra-cosmic. Okay, you see it outside the cosmos, yet pervades and supports and sustains the universe. This is what you see. Okay, the first truth of spiritual experience. Not what you experience, but the first truth of spiritual experience. But this truth is personal as well as impersonal. Therefore, it takes three fundamental forms. Sat becomes what it becomes? It becomes the self. Brahman, immutable, impersonal. Okay, this is the first Sat. Then corresponding to the transcendental. Then secondly, the conscious being or spirit, which is Purusha. Okay, it becomes the corresponding to the cosmos. Then the divine being, Purushottama, Ishvara, master and lord of creation, it corresponds to the individual aspect. Okay. Similarly, to these three aspects of Sat, we have three aspects of Chit Shakti, power of being. Okay. To Sat corresponds Maya, the power of illusion, corresponding to the transcendental. So if you are in the consciousness of the self, the Sat, you see the physical world as Maya, power of illusion corresponding to the transcendental. If you are in the Chit Shakti consciousness, you see the physical world as Prakriti, mechanical unconscious energy corresponding to the cosmic. And the third, if you are in the consciousness of the personal aspect of the divine, you see the world as Shakti, your own power, power of Ishvara, combining immutable and mutable, the infinite and the finite, the Saguna and the Nirguna, corresponding to the individual. If you see the divine as an individual, you will see that he is both Nirguna as well as Saguna. When we see and experience all these three aspects of Purusha and Prakriti, then only do we get the integral truth of the supreme reality, in which all contradictions disappear and there is total harmony. Unfortunately, we don't have all the three experiences. Normally, a yogi does not experience all the three simultaneously. He may experience one by one, or even if he experiences one, it is so satisfying, he doesn't bother about the others. So that's why. But Sri Aurobindo says, to understand the divine and the universe fully, you have to have all the three experiences. The transcendental, the cosmic, and the individual. You see the divine in yourself, individual. You see the divine in the cosmos, the cosmic, the universal. You see the divine outside the universe. That is the transcendental. This is what he said in the previous. Now, we have just read the summary of what he's saying in this one. So we look into detail. Okay. I'm reading the first sentence of the para we read just now. If we look at this picture of the self-existence, okay, self-existence, Sat, okay, the substance, okay, this is the first state, the substance, and its works as a unitary, unlimited whole of vision, it stands together and imposes itself by its convincing totality. Okay. The subtlest of substance becomes the grossest of substance, and you understand that fully well. It stands together and imposes itself by its convincing totality. That's why the Buddhists feel that there is nothing beyond it. It is very, very convincing. That's the whole point. But to the analysis of the logical intellect, it offers an abundance of difficulties, such as all attempts to erect a logical system out of a perception of an illimitable existence must necessarily create. If it is something you are trying to understand the illimitable with your limited mind, naturally you will have problems. That's what he's saying. And not few problems, abundance of problems, infinite problems. You'll never be able to understand with the mind. Okay. For any such endeavor must either affect consistency by an arbitrary sectioning of the complex truth of things, or else by its comprehensiveness become logically untenable. When you try to understand the infinite with the finite, you are using a knife. Your mind is like a knife. Okay? This is an image which some of the yogis use. When you take, your mind is a knife, it cuts up, it analyzes. And so naturally you will not see the whole, you will see only part of it. Okay? So it becomes logically untenable. But if you go beyond logic, it becomes possible to understand. For we see that the indeterminable determines itself as infinite and finite. Okay? God can be infinite as well as finite. What about the universe? Even the universe is infinite. But even science says that it's a bounded infinite. Because suppose you go, it's possible in your imagination to go and you are going into the universe and you keep traveling. Will you keep traveling ever further and further away? Science says that you come back to the same spot. And that's why they have the concept of the space is curved, they say. Okay, it's like a circle. You start and you come back to the starting point. Okay, so bounded infinite. These are all scientific ideas, but the spiritual truths are slightly different. Anyway, so you have this. So the infinite can make itself into the finite. Okay, so, this is what he's saying. For we see that the indeterminable determines itself as infinite and finite. The immutable admits a constant mutability and endless differences. The silent self becomes the infinite forms of the universe. Okay? Like the water behind the dam, which is one and finite, infinite, and very, very stable, no movement at all, immutable, it starts producing all the forms. When you let the power come out, it becomes infinite forms. Okay? The idea of the dam, the water behind the dam is not mine, it is Srirandu. He mentions it in one place. So, the one becomes an innumerable multitude. The impersonal creates a supposed personality. All these are opposites. Is itself a person. The self has a nature. The self is usually described as featureless. But even the self can become featureful. The, the immutable can become mutable. The featureless can put on infinite features and is yet other than its nature. Being turns into becoming. Being is a static condition and becoming is the constant mutability in the physical world. And yet it is always itself and other than its becomings. So, it is somewhat like, not really, but to a certain extent, if you take a, nowadays when the police use what is called a water cannon, okay, so when they want to break up a riot, if they use guns, then they'll be killing people, and that's not acceptable in a democracy. So they use either tear gas or other things, or they use what is called a water cannon. Okay, so the water cannon, it's a powerful jet of water which comes out from the nozzle of the their instrument, and then when it comes out, it's if you look at it very carefully, it is coming out with such speed and such density, it looks like one. Okay, but then as it goes farther and farther away, 1 meter, 2 meters, 10 meters, it breaks up into infinite droplets of water. So this is the image of the self becoming the universe. You can think of it that way. It's a very interesting image. It helps to understand. Okay, so that water which is static can become infinite movement. The water that is one can become the infinite multiplicity. That's very possible, but at the mental level, you can't accept because you see differences, opposites. Then he's saying the self has a nature and yet is other than its nature. Being turns into becoming and yet it is always itself and other than its becoming. The jet of water in the beginning is one and it continues to be one and it becomes at the other end, it becomes the many. Both are possible. The universal individualizes himself and the individual universalizes himself. This is a very important sentence and you must, it's not even a sentence, it's a phrase. The universe individualizes itself. Let's look at what he's saying. What is the universal? There is matter, infinite matter. It goes right up to the end of the galaxies, okay, and constellations. That is matter. But it can become a stone, it can become a human body, it can become an insect. It individualizes itself. Okay. Then the individual universalizes himself. A yogi, a normal man, is stuck in his body-mind life. He is individual. But the consciousness can come out of it and universalizes itself. It's like a compressed gas if you put in a bottle, okay? It is individual. But the moment you open that bottle, that gas will go everywhere. It is not now stationed in the bottle, it is everywhere. The individual can universalize himself. And that is the reason why a yogi can have a cosmic consciousness. He becomes infinite. Okay. So, I remind you of mother's experience when she's coming from Sri Lanka the first time. Around far away in the sea, she could feel that she is entering Sri Lanka's aura. So his consciousness had expanded and gone out of his body and gone deep into space in elsewhere. So mother knew that she is entering his aura. Okay? That's a cosmic consciousness. Brahman is at once void of qualities, which we call the featurelessness, and capable of infinite qualities. The Lord and doer of works, yet a non-doer and a silent witness. The doer of works is the personal aspect of God at the highest level, Purusha. And yet he can become the self. Okay? The self also is a non-doer. He is just watching. All these things are possible beyond the mind, but not in the mind. And a silent witness of the workings of nature. If we look carefully at these workings of nature, once we put aside the veil of familiarity and our unthinking acquiescence in the process of things as natural, so they always happen because so they always happen, we discover that all she does in whole or in parts is a miracle, an act of some incomprehensible magic. The being of the self-existence and the world that has appeared in it, each of them and both together, a supra-rational mystery. It's a mystery which the mind cannot understand, supra-rational. There seems to us to be a reason in things because the processes of the physical finite are consistent to our view. So what does he mean by that? He means that there is a law that operates. And that law that operates is constant and consistent. If you mix, as I said, oxygen and hydrogen, you always get water. It's not that suddenly one day something else will happen. It is consistent and therefore it is very believable. That's what Swami is saying. There seems to us to be a reason in things because the processes of the physical finite are consistent to our view. Okay? A seed of a mango tree will always produce a mango tree. It will not produce a tamarind tree. So it becomes believable. Okay? But yet if you look carefully, it's a mystery. But this reason in things, when closely looked, seems to stumble at every moment because the irrational or infra-rational and the supra-rational it seems to stumble at every moment against the irrational and infra-rational, supra-rational. Remember, the mind is a mental consciousness, but consciousness is not mental. The mind is a consciousness, but the consciousness is not mental. It is more than mental. It can be below the mind, it can be infra-rational, and it can be supra-rational. Okay? consciousness is something fundamental, like matter. It exists by itself. It is not that the brain is producing consciousness. The consistency, the determinability of process seems to lessen rather than increase as we pass from matter to life and from life to mentality. Now, this is an interesting thing which you have to see. The number of atoms in the physical world is infinite. Now, when it produces life, the life forms, do they equal the number of atoms? No. Only some become living creatures. So it's like a pyramidal structure. Then when animals start producing men, okay, you become, first of all, higher animals, dolphins, chimpanzees, more intelligent than the others, okay, and then finally you get man. There are less men than there are animals. There are less animals than there are atoms in the physical world. There will be less yogis than there are number of men. So that's what Srimad is saying. See, as we keep going higher and higher, okay, he's saying look at the sentence. The consistency, the determinability of process seems to lessen rather than to increase as we pass from matter to life and from life to mentality. As you're going higher and higher, the number of the multiplicity of forms starts reducing. In other words, you are going more and more towards the oneness of things. Okay? As you keep coming down, the multiplicity increases. Okay? The forms increase. The determinability increases as you come down. The determinability of forms decreases as you keep going up. Up. At the highest level, only one. Okay? That's what he's saying. Therefore, we can also say that there are less men than there are animals, and there are less yogis than there are men, and there will be less supramental than there will be yogis, because it's a representation. What evolution is showing is that this is possible in matter. Look, we are producing life out of matter. We are producing mental thinking out of animals, and we are producing yogis out of human beings. But the supramental race, there will be only a few. But it proves that it is possible for matter to become like this. That's the whole thing, what he's saying. Okay. The consistency, the determinability of process seems to lessen rather than to increase as we pass from matter to life and from life to mental. If the finite consents to some extent to look as if it were rational, the infinitesimal refuses to be bound by the same laws, and the infinite is unseizable. Now, this is a very interesting thing also scientifically also. When you go from one level to another level, the laws change. Okay? At the surface of the earth, the gravitation is pakka. You can't avoid it unless you are a yogi. Okay? Then you have levitation, but normally it is there. Now, when you go into 100 meters above space, conditions have changed. There is no more gravitation. Okay? Gravitation is there, but very, very low gravitation. Okay? Now, when you go down to the atomic level, gravitation also disappears. Okay? That's what he's saying. And he is also saying not only gravitation, but even temperature wise also, if you go down to almost zero, okay, the absolute zero, you can't go below that, is minus 272 or something like that. Okay? So at that level, gravitation disappears. Even before that, gravitation disappears. There are videos which show that very, very cold things are not subject to gravitation. They float in the air. Okay? That's what he's pointing out here. That's what he's saying. And what he's saying spiritually is also possible at the physical level. Okay? Then, as for the action of the universe and its significance, it escapes us altogether. We don't even understand from where the universe has come and what is the meaning. Why has it been made? What is it? Is there an aim? It escapes us altogether. If self, God and spirit be there. Okay, look at the language. He's saying if they are there, his dealings with the world and us are incomprehensible. Why? Because we can't understand God who is perfect. Why is he creating sorrow and suffering and pain? We can't understand. His dealings with the world and us are incomprehensible, offer no clue that we can follow. God and nature and even ourselves move in a mysterious way which is only partially and at points intelligible. Something you may understand, but not the whole thing. But as a whole escapes our comprehension. All the works of Maya look like the production of a supra-rational magical power which arranges things according to its wisdom or its fantasy. Okay? It could be wisdom or it could be fantasy also. But a wisdom which is not ours and a fantasy which baffles our imagination. And this baffling continues right up to the overmind level. Okay? That's what Sylvia is saying. The spirit that manifests things or manifests itself in them so obscurely looks to our reason like a magician, and his power of Maya a creative magic. But magic can create illusions or it can create astounding realities, and we find it difficult to decide which of these suprarational processes faces us in the universe. So, Srinath says actually he writes in one letter to Dilip Kumar Roy. Dilip Kumar Roy always used to doubt. Okay, he used to have experiences, but he used to always doubt whether he will ever get something more than what he is getting. Okay, so Surendra used to say, "What doubts you are talking about? My doubts were gigantic doubts." He says in one letter, and the gigantic doubt is this one: you go up to the overmind level, which is the reality. Is it matter which is producing the universe, or is it a supra-rational mystery that is producing the universe? You still don't know, because both are there. There is spirit as well as there is matter, and you can't decide. So that's what he's talking about. We find it difficult to decide which of these supra-rational processes faces us in the universe. But when you go to the supramental level, everything becomes clear. As I said, you can have glimpses of the supramental and then things become clear. Then you remember what you have experienced. Okay? So, 8:23. We have got about 12 minutes. We can read the next paragraph. But in fact, the core.
Shall I?
Yes, read.
But
Okay.
in fact, sensation must necessarily be sought not in anything illusory or fantastic in the supreme or the universal self-existence, but in our own inability to seize the supreme clue to its manifold existence or discover the secret plan and pattern of its action. The self-existence is the infinite, and its way of being and of action must be the way of infinite, but our consciousness is limited, our reason built upon things finite. It is irrational to suppose that a finite consciousness and reason can be measure of infinite. This smallest cannot judge it, that immensity, that poverty bounds to a limited use of its scanty means, cannot conceive the opulent management of those riches. An ignorant half knowledge cannot follow the motions of an all knowledge. Our reasoning is based upon our experience of the finite operations of the physical nature, on an incomplete observation and uncertain understandings of something that acts within limits. It has organized on that basis certain conceptions which it seeks to make general and universal. And whatever contradicts or departs from these conceptions, it regards as irrational, false, or inexplicable. But there are different orders of the reality, and the conceptions, measures, standards suitable to one need not be applicable to another order. Our physical being is built first upon an aggregate of infinitesimals, electrons, atoms, molecules, cells. But the law of action of this infinite infinitesimals does not explain all the physical workings even of the human body, much less can they cover all the law of process of actions of men's supraphysical parts, his life movements and mind movements and soul movements. In the body, finites have been formed with their own habits, properties, characterized ways of action. The body itself is a finite, which is not a mere aggregate of the smaller finites, which its use as parts, organs, constituent instruments of its operations. It has developed a being and has a general law which surpasses the dependence upon these elements or constituents. The life and mind again are supraphysical finites with a different and more subtle mode of operation of their own, and no dependence on the physical parts of the instrumentation can annul their intrinsic character. There is something more and other in our vital and mental being and vital and mental forces than the functioning of a physical body. But again, each finite is in its reality or has behind it an infinite which has built and supports and directs the finite it has made as its self figure, so that even the being and law and process of the finite cannot be totally understood without a knowledge of that which is occurred within or behind it. Our finite knowledge, conception, standards may be valid within their limits, but they are incomplete and relative. A law founded upon an observation of what is divided in space and time cannot be confidently applied to the being. An action of indivisible, not only it cannot be applied to the spaceless and timeless infinite, but it cannot be applied even to a time infinite or a space infinite. A law and process binding for our superficial being need not be binding on what is occult within us. Again, our intellect founding itself on reasons find it difficult to deal with what is infra-rational. Life is infra-rational, and we find that our intellectual reason applying itself to life is constantly breaking itself, making an artificial Procrustean rule that either succeeds in killing or petrifying life, constant rigid and convincing. That aim and impatience, its capacity or end by certain a revolution the perceptions of the system and superstructures built upon it by our intelligence. An instinct and intuition is needed, which the intellect has not at its command and does not always listen to when it comes enough itself to help the mental working. But still, from difficult must it be for our reason to understand and deal with the supra-rational. The supra-rational is the realm of the spirit and in the largeness, subtlety, profundity, complexity of its movement, and the reason is lost. Here, intuition and inner experience alone are the guide, or if there is any other, it is that of which intuition is only a sharp edge, an intense projected ray. The final enlightenment must come from the supra-rational truth consciousness, from a supramental vision and knowledge.
Okay, very big para, 2 pages. So today we don't have the time to do it, but what we'll do is get the gist of what he's saying. So I'll read out to you the summary. Okay, but there are very interesting things you said here which we need to look at. So, but I'll just tell you I'll read out the summary. The solution to this mystery. What is the mystery? Everything in the universe is a mystery. How does the seed become the tree? How does light, the different lights that we see, they are all essentially the same. The vibration, the frequency of vibration will changes and you change the color changes. How come? Okay. So all this mystery to you. The solution to this mystery is not to be sought in the supreme reality, but in our own inability of limited consciousness. The problem, the mystery is to be our own inability of limited consciousness. The problem arises, the mystery is because of your limitation. In the supreme reality, there is no limitation at all. Okay? There is no mystery at all. Everything becomes clear. The spirit is infinite and our mind is finite. Very clear. So, how can the latter comprehend the former? Just like somebody who is very dull cannot understand a mathematical problem, but someone who is intelligent will immediately sees it. So when you have a limited consciousness, how can you understand that which is unlimited? That's what very easy to understand what he's saying. How can the latter comprehend the former? The small, the lesser, can never know the bigger, the greater. Our perception of nature is based on our limited sense knowledge and mental circumscription. Our senses are giving us data and the senses are very, very limited. Okay? And mental circumscription, we are limited only to the mind. We can't use consciousness which is above the mind. Normally we don't. Nor can we understand the infra-rational. There are different orders of reality. There is matter, which is a world in itself. There is life, which is a world in itself. And there is mind, which is a world in itself. What is applicable to one is not applicable to the others. Very simple. An animal can pounce on another animal and eat it up. There is nothing wrong with it. But at our level, we certainly can't do that. We can't jump onto another man and eat him or even murder him. It will be considered most irrational and a crime. It's not a crime in the animal world. Just an example to show how laws go on changing. The rational mind cannot grasp the nature of the infra-rational, matter and life, nor can it comprehend the supra-rational. Neither you can understand what is below and nor can you understand what is above if you are a normal human being. The finite cannot understand the infinite. Even on one level of matter itself, what is law at the atomic level is not law at the interstellar level. This we just now discussed now, that the laws go on changing at the cosmic level, okay? But at the level of the atom, the laws change, okay? It's different. And this is very interesting because now man has discovered that. And there is a huge field opening up, which is called nanotechnology. It's being used in medicine. It's being used in discovery of new materials and new ways of looking at things. Nanotechnology is the future. There's absolutely no doubt about it. That will be the main area of interest for science. Okay? Nanotechnology. Yes, discovering fantastic things. So, the finite cannot understand the infinite. Even on one level of matter itself, what is law at the atomic level is not the law at the interstellar level, among the stars and the constellations. That is why our mind can never control the vital, try as hard as it might, because we don't understand the vital. Our body is made of organs, each with its own proper functioning. But the body is not a mere sum of all the organs. It is much more than that. Okay? That's what is the last he's saying, that there can be something, the knowledge that we have is not a summation. It's not this plus this plus this plus this. It is something much more than that. And the example he's giving is the body. Okay, we have a liver, we have a heart, we have kidneys. Okay, we have lungs. Now, if I put all these things into a box, can I get a human being? No, there has to be. So it is, the body is much more than a summation of all the organs. That's basically what he's saying. So exactly the reality also is like that. So we have to go to the highest level. So when can you understand? We can understand only when you go to the highest level, the supra-rational truth consciousness. Supra-rational truth consciousness, the super mind. Only when you go there, everything becomes understandable. But that's not mental logic. Okay. This is what he's saying. So next time we will go through this para. Okay. We'll go through this para and see what he's saying. Because then we'll understand the words that he's using and the ideas in different ways. So today we stop here because it's time. Life Divine, page 341, and we have to read but in fact. Okay.
Merci.
Au revoir, everybody.
Au revoir, Rangana. Au revoir, Tulu Muhammad. Have a nice day.
Au revoir. Have a nice day.